Muted.
Welcome everybody. Today we're going to walk through the Loan Pool portal, and the goal of today's training is really to serve as a live demonstration of the portal, how to start a file from reservation all the way through underwriting and scheduling the closing. We won't really cover program rules. The goal at this point is really to walk through how to utilize the portal to submit a loan file. If you have questions, feel free to chat those, and we will try to take breaks. We have Rich Lee also on the line, and he's going to help facilitate answering some of those questions as well. And I'm going to do my best to keep working through the demonstration. If you have questions, feel free to chat them in, and if we don't get them answered or something comes up in the future when you're actually working on your first file, feel free to reach out to us and we'll do our best to walk you through. If you're used to working in any kind of online shopping environment, this is not going to be dramatically different. It won't shock and amaze you. A lot of the features in the portal are pretty similar to any other kind of user interface that has a username and login. So we're going to start from this screen, which is actually the first screen after the login screen. You should all have a username and login. If you're brand new and haven't been set up, you do need to have somebody with your organization contact us to set up a username and login. It doesn't take long to set that up, but you do need a username and login. I will point out that we can see your username, but within the agency we have no access to your password. So should you ever forget those, we can reset the passwords, but we cannot tell you what they are because we cannot see them. So after you hit the initial screen and you log in, this is the landing page that you'll come into on the portal. If it's your very first time logging into the portal, there is a disclosure form, and there's an updated one that was just re-released. A lot of you may have to re-accept that because it was re-released. You'll have to accept that once, and if that changes, they'll show you the new disclosures. So this is the landing page, and I'm going to point out a couple features here. Up at the top right, you'll see a little person, and you can click on that. This can actually take you back out to the main screen. You can log out from here. I'll just show you. So the main screen, if I click on this, it'll actually show you the business systems you have access to. In this case, this test user is also a user who participates in the foreclosure prevention program. Also, the agency's rehab programs have recently been added into the portal. So if your organization is working with more than one agency program that's in the portal, you'll have to select the system that you're attempting to access. The Loan Pool portal is the one that those that are working with the Self-Help Loan Pool or the Community Partners Loan Pool will be accessing. Another feature that I'll point out is up here on the right, you'll see subscriptions. And I'm going to click on that. That's not a newsletter subscription. That is a subscription to the email updates where you will be notified when there are changes to a file. And what you'll see is that there are green and blue highlighted. These are all gobbledygook names here, but what you'll see is that there's some are blue and some are green. The ones that are green means that this user is subscribed to any update. So if the reservation gets approved, the underwriting approval gets issued, they're going to be automatically notified when there's any critical action that goes on with this file. Up at the top, you'll see the program name. In this case, it's CPLP. It could also be SHLP. And it says 2017, and the year is highlighted as green. What that means is every file that started in that program year, this user is going to get notified for. If, say, I changed my mind and on the 2016 year, which is now currently passed, you could click on that and highlight it as green, and you will see, oh, now the whole year of 2016 is going to be in the subscription. You can also click on it again and bring it back out. Blue means you're not going to get updates. So depending on the role that you have, if you're backing somebody up or you're the primary contact, you can use this to sort of facilitate who gets notified within your organization. Obviously, if you're the sole contact for the organization that's going to be using the portal, you will be the only one subscribed. If you start a file, so if you are the one who starts the reservation, you will automatically be subscribed. And by default, you will be the subscribed contact. You actually have to assign that to another user if you want to be off that list. I will show you a little bit later how to assign the primary contact for a file. So say a staff member leaves, you can reassign the primary contact within the portal as well. So now I'm going to go back out to the main landing page, and a couple features I want to point out is we've got the announcements section here. Right now there's no announcements in this test version of the portal, but if you log into the real version, there's several announcements there. You click on the announcements, you can see a short, very short version of the message. You can click on those and they'll expand. You can cycle through the list of them at the bottom, going previous and next. It'll show you the most recent 3 announcements currently. Inbox is where you will see the notifications and responses for messages in the portal. And what I will say is the inbox is where messages that have not been opened previously live. The moment you have opened those messages, they go back and they are tied to the message queue with the particular file that they were sent regarding. So they will only be here in this generic inbox once, essentially. As soon as you open them, it's going to go back and live with the file. They never disappear from the file, so you can always find them, but they won't show up here as an unread message. If there are multiple people subscribed within your agency, the message system will actually send like multiple announcements for, say, underwriting approval. And so if you read it and one of your coworkers hasn't yet, it won't disappear from their message queue just because you read it on yours. And currently, the important dates feature isn't functional. At some point, we will post trainings and other things here as well. That will be something to watch in the future when we get some enhancements in the system, but currently there's nothing that's going to be queuing there. You need to watch email memos that are sent out about key dates to see what's coming up in terms of training. So I'm going to go up to the very top now, and a couple things I'll point out. One is you'll see there's this briefcase with a 4 over it, and what that means is there are 4 files currently tied to this user that are waiting the user's action to go to the next step. So if that was blank, that means either there are no files at all in process or every file is waiting on an action by the agency. So any number here means it's waiting in your queue for the next business step, essentially. We're going to go over here to units, and I'm going to click on that. And we've got 2 options. I'm going to click on active units first just to show you that feature, but the one that you're going to be using most frequently is new reservation. So under active units, when you click on that, you will see a list of all of the active units that are in process. You can click on this blue button to the left of the unit to open up any of those and carry on. So it's a way to get a larger list of the units. It gives you the ability to log in if you had some questions about those units, where they were at, when they were approved, those kinds of things. You can actually click into the unit at any point. It's another way to reach the units here. You can also, in the search box, type in any part of the key information, the borrower's name, the address, the city, and it'll start to scroll down. Let me show you here again. So any part of it, it'll start to shorten the list to the files that have matching criteria in it. So that's a quick way to sort between the files if you're having trouble finding the one that you are looking for. So now I'm going to click on units, and I'm going to go new reservation. So new reservation, at the very top, you're going to see program. And in this case, the test user that I've set up is tied to the Community Partners Loan Pool program. If you're a self-help loan pool member, then you would see SHLP here. You select the applicable program. Right now, I don't believe we have any users that are working in both programs, but it's feasible. Down the road, maybe that may be a situation, but currently not. Program cycle. So what you'll see is 2017, 2016, 2015. You'll always pick the current year. If you do not have access to the current year for program cycle, it's because there is some key document your organization needs to submit to the agency, and we haven't received that or logged it yet. Once you are set up for the year, it will appear in this drop-down. And an important note is if you are, say it's January of 2018, and you're looking in here to start a reservation, and you still have 2017 in the drop-down, but do not have 2018 yet, do not start the reservation under the previous year. That in our world, in our databases, are like separate planets, and we can't move a unit between one year and the next internally. It also, what happens is the money gets moved out of one program year when that year closes, and there's no ability internally to fund that. So any work that you do in the system, if it's done for a year that's been closed out, is going to be work that you have to redo under the active program year. So just pay attention to that. I'm going to select 2017, and let's see here. Who do we want to do as a user? We'll do. We've got a Homer Simpson there. I'll do Bart Simpson. We'll put him in here. You're going to type in the address. And what you'll notice is that there are fields with asterisks next to them, these red asterisks. Each one of those are required to even start a reservation. So if you don't have a property address and you don't have a borrower's name, you can't start one. There's not a tremendous amount of information that you have to start a reservation, but you do have to have at least that level of information to start. Property county. You can either type in the first letter of the county here or click in the drop-down box and select it. Funding package. So this is probably the one piece of information that's most key. So depending on the program that you're in, you'll have a couple options here, and just make sure that you select the funding package that you mean. Standard means that you are accessing a typical loan under that program. You also might be requesting some of the energy efficiency money or the green building money in addition to the loan, and that still would be called standard. The other options are usually when only the energy money is being requested, only the green money and energy money, only the IDA money. With SHLP, we have that second mortgage program. So unless you are specifically doing something that isn't the main program, you will generally select standard. And then hit next. Site name it simply means the neighborhood, or the community. It has to do with where the property is actually located. You can start typing in a name, and what you'll see is that the system will populate neighborhoods that have been set up before. So if it shows up again, just select one that's in the drop-down box. Make sure before you select one that you don't create an unneeded duplicate entry by a slightly different version of the same neighborhood. And then loan amount. This is also really key. This is the loan amount you are asking from the agency. So this is not the first mortgage loan amount that the bank might be providing or the funding that might be combined with the Habitat funding. This is the loan from the agency. And so in this case, we're going to say $30,000, and we're going to hit save. And what you'll see up here on the right is now it has told us this is pending setup. So we do not have a completed reservation. We have the start, the shell of a reservation, but this hasn't been submitted yet to the agency to review to hold the loan pool funding. Over here on your menu, you'll see a dashboard, and you'll see a variety of numbers next to fields. And if it's a field where we know there is information that is still required for that step in the process, it will automatically populate the number. You can mouse over these and see, oh, here's the information that's required still. If there is a question, it may be that we haven't reached that business step yet, or it may be, like in the case of co-borrower, the system doesn't know if there's a co-borrower. And so you're going to have to give us that information. And so the system won't automatically reject a reservation if you missed adding the co-borrower because it doesn't know that there is one. And so it's up to you to verify that that's something that needs to be in. You'll also see general information, a reminder about the loan amount. You can change this later, it's possible. The assigned contact here is the test user that we created, and the date reserved, so it's not been reserved, the date approved, and closing date. We don't have any of those things right now, so they're all blank. Near the top right, I'm going to point out here next to unit settings, under this little gear, if, for instance, this test user left, I can actually go into this file and reassign another contact from the organization to be the primary contact, and then you hit save. Okay, so at this point, we're going to jump into the file, and we're going to click on Borrower. And at a borrower, it tells us there are 11 fields that are required that we're still missing. The best thing to do is just to start in the top right here where there's a pencil, click on that pencil, and work your way down. So date of birth, and gender, and I'm going to try to do these as quickly as possible because most of this information is fairly self-explanatory. In this case, we'll say this individual is married. Credit score, we'll say, is a 650, and let's see, we'll hit save. Current mailing address. Now this is this is where you're going to put the mailing address where if a disclosure or some key loan document had to be sent via mail, this is where we're going to mail it. The system also requires an email address, and if at all possible, this should be the borrower's email address. If the agency ever has any disclosures to be sent out, we always attempt to do it by email first. It's much easier for us to manage it that way, and so the system is going to require an email address. We only use the mailing address for loan documents as a backup if there's no way to get an email to the user. Okay, so mailing address, we'll say is this, and hit save. And as we've gone through those two sections, moving our way down, you'll now notice over here next to borrower, it says there are no issues. We have a check mark. That means that all the critical fields that were in that section have been completed. Now, it doesn't mean they're accurate necessarily. It may be I have a typo in there or I gave incorrect information on the address. And so that may need to be changed. Something I will point out as well is if you're doing the reservation, if you get past the point of getting the reservation approved, the fields in the reservation will be locked. And so if there's information there that needs to be updated, like say there was a typo in the street address for the property, you'll need to message us that, and we can manually change it. Almost all of this information we can manually change on our side, even if it's locked on your side. I did have a question about where do we get the credit score from. So generally, you're getting the credit score from the credit counseling that's being done. So if there is no credit score, you would leave that blank. You can also use the tri-merge from the lender if the lender is willing to share that and the borrower is willing to share that from the lender. And then in a lot of cases, the housing counseling agency will pull a soft hit tri-merge report so that they get a score, at very least a history. Okay, co-borrower. So I'm going to go in here on co-borrower, and I'm going to say there is a co-borrower in this case. And again, I'm squeezing through this pretty quick because I am going to pretend that you guys can fill out basic information about the demographics. Credit score, email address, relationship to borrower. Now this is a free form field, so in this case we said this is a spouse. One feature I'll point out just below is you have the ability, if for instance that the spouse is not going to be on the promissory note. They are not going to be receiving the loan at all. You can exclude them from the loan application by saying yes. By default, it's going to be no. And this really only applies to a spousal relationship where the spouse may need to sign the deed of trust, or very likely will need to sign the deed of trust, even if they're not on the promissory note. And so by selecting yes, it's letting our legal team know that they will not be on the promissory note and also excluded from the qualifying income, but they will need to sign the deed of trust. We're going to say no in this case because that's going to be the most typical situation, and I'm going to hit save. So you'll see it still says, hey, there's 4 things left under co-borrower. So I'm going to go down. We still need to add current mailing address. I'm going to hit pencil. So you have the option under the co-borrower to say, hey, I want to use the borrower's mailing address, and it has the assumption that they're currently co-occupying a property together. That's an option. You can also add in a separate mailing address if they're not currently occupying a property together, and then hit save. So now we have the information for borrower, we have the information for co-borrower, and we're going to continue to work our way down. So property, we'll click on. And a couple things I'll point out is, first off, we're going to look at this map. And this map is going to attempt to mark where the property is. Well, if this is an address that doesn't exist anywhere in Google's database, it's going to put us in the middle of the ocean. So if that's not correct, you're going to click the pencil up here. And what you can do is actually mouse in and zoom in. And put the arrow wherever the property is by clicking on the map. So I just double clicked right there and said, oh, that's where it's at. And I'm going to hit save. And you'll see, hey, it's updated there. Just above a place called Grease Outlet. Sounds delicious. And so what the system will actually do is it will save this address, the latitude, longitude, and it actually allows the agency to pull reports. If we ever have to do special mapping for HUD, we can do it based on where that arrow is if it has trouble finding the physical address in the system. We're going to continue down to the bottom and click on the pencil. So unit status, this is fairly self-explanatory, but you're going to select the option that applies. So we're going to say in this case, hey, they're buying a new home. And the year it's built is 2017. Number of bathrooms, 3 bathrooms. You can select the number of bedrooms and bathrooms. We'll say 3 bedrooms rather, and we'll do 2.5 baths. And let's see, I don't know, we'll say this one is 1,500 square feet and a lot size, and this is in square feet, we'll say of 10,000. Condition at closing, so this is where if it's an existing unit, you may have to provide a little more information, but we're going to say it's newly constructed. And condition at closing comment. So this is so we know, hey, you know, say you selected one of these other things for existing. You can put in more detail. It helps inform the underwriter what documentation may be coming with the file. So if there's something unique, like if a gut rehab, things were taken down to stud, you can put that in as a condition comment. You can say the seller's making all the repairs, whatever the case is. In this case, we're just going to say it's a new unit. But it gives you a little bit of a free-form field to communicate to the underwriter so that they know better what kind of documentation to expect. And then dwelling type, we got single-family, condo, manufactured home, townhouse, co-op, and we're going to do single-family detached. I'm going to hit save. So we're waiting a second for the internet to catch up. Assuming I didn't just blow it up. There we go. All right, and now you'll notice under property, we've got no issues. So we're going to continue working our way from the top to the bottom. And now we're going to click on household. And this is mostly demographic information about the household. The names of the household members is actually going to be added under the income section, which I'll show you later. So under household, we're going to click on the pencil, and this is demographic information for HUD. These are their categories that we're directly providing back to HUD. So select the one that applies. Household type. IDA participants, so in the vast majority of the cases, this is going to be no, but if they are saving as part of an individual development account program, you can select yes. From subsidized housing, so this isn't a decision-making criteria for the agency, but this is actually a criteria that HUD requires us to report out to, and this is based on the disclosure of the borrower. So they self-disclose, and we move on with whatever they disclose. First-time homebuyer, so neither of the programs are first-time homebuyer programs, but this is also a field that HUD requires us to report on. So we're going to say no in this case. Had a household disabled? No. Had a household veteran? No. In conflict of interest, is this borrower or the co-borrower in some way, or one of their immediate family members, an employee of your organization? And you can select yes if that's true, and we're going to ask for an explanation. Mostly what we're looking at is to document that A, the borrower went through the same process any other borrower coming through your program would go through, and B, that they have no authority over the Community Partners Loan Pool or the Self-Help Loan Pool program, that they do not have any direct authority over the approvals, the submission, and in a lot of cases we're dealing with organizations that have large staff, like say a county or a city, and it may be an entirely unrelated department. In the vast majority of cases, this is going to be no, and we're going to hit save. And you'll see we still have 3 items to answer. So we're going to click over here under Home, and we're going to add the anticipated closing date. And you'll see there's a note, you are not reserving a closing date at this point, only providing an estimate. So that's really key. We are only providing an estimate here. You can either select on the calendar, or you can actually type in the date if it was going into the month of June, for instance. Or the month of May. I said June. We can make it June. Repairs required before resale. So in this case, we said it's a new unit, but if it is an existing unit and it's being bought, there may be repairs required before it can be sold. I'm going to say no. Energy green standard. So this is about whether or not this property has been certified and to what program it has been certified. If you are also requesting the fee for system vision or green building from the agency, you have to do that under the funding screen, and I'll show you where. In this case, we'll pretend that it's currently participating in the System Vision New Home Slab program. We already have the site from the earlier information, so the builder, we'll say, is Big Builder, electric. If you click on this, there's a drop-down of the electric utilities and the co-ops that are in North Carolina. Select the one that's applicable. You only have to provide the electric, but we asked for the others. This actually helps on reporting for us, but it's something that you have the ability, if you only know the electric, that'll get you through. Under water, we're just asking, is it publicly owned or well water? And the same with sewer. So essentially, is it a private septic system or publicly owned sewer? We're going to hit save. And you'll see now we've got no issues under household. And we can continue on to the environmental review. And again, we're going to go up and click on the pencil. And the very first question is probably the question in the whole process that's going to take you the most time. Couple things I'll point out is if this property address exists in the FIRS, the Flood Management Data System, you can click here, right where I highlighted, and it is going to attempt to find that address. if it exists. Now, I made up an address, and so zoom out here. I know for a fact that the address that I picked doesn't exist. So what the system has a tendency to do is it'll give you one of three responses. One, it'll say address not found. Two, it'll put a dot in the middle of the city that is not the actual address. And so you actually have to look in here and go, wait, is this the street that they're on? Or three, it will actually be the address, which is great. And then in which case, it's really easy. I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I've got a couple different options here. Let's say they didn't find my address in here in the flood map. And some things I'll point out real quick too is here in the center you can see here is an example of what the flood zones will show up as on the map. So, you know, if it's clear over top of the lot, it's not, there are no flood plains or flood zones near the property. Some things you can do if you can't find the address or it was not found correctly, my best recommendation is to go into Google Maps or some other mapping service that you like to use and say, you know, an address or an intersection near the property. So I'm going to say, Foxwood Drive and Old Lead Mine Road here. And so it gives me an intersection here. And I know, for instance, that this may be near where my actual address is. We'll say my actual address is down here, but say the system doesn't have this address. What I will do after I've gotten a map where I'm relatively close to my physical address that I need is I'll zoom in and I'm going to go find a nearby building. I'll go over this direction and see, okay, here's a Food Lion. And Google Maps is going to give me the address for the Food Lion here. And I know that Food Lion is definitely going to be in the flood mapping system because it's been there for more than a year. Typically anything that's been there more than about 6 months, it will be in the mapping system. And then you can actually go in and type in the address into the flood mapping system directly, either from the main screen, or if we were back on this map screen, I can open up the magnifying glass and type it in here as well. I'm going to take out the unit number just to make sure it doesn't confuse the system. And I can close this. And look, here it found this address that's nearby the address that I actually wanted to find. Now I'm going to scroll over from where the system found it, and I'm going to pick, I don't know, we're going to say the actual address, maybe this one here. So we'll make it this property to make it simple. So we'll say that's the property I meant to get. The system didn't have it in it. Now I've clicked and put the little yellow arrow over where the home is. I can now zoom in, and basically you want to try to get it centered on your screen. You want to get the whole boundary of the property. And in this case, there's not a floodplain. What you can do now is one of two things. I'm going to show you two approaches to produce the map. One is you can open up the snipping tool here, which is a tool built into Microsoft Windows. I'm sure Apple has an equivalent. And you can actually come in, highlight the whole area with the legend open and the location open and the dot marking it. And I've just now created a physical picture that is a map, and I can go in the snipping tool and say save as, and say this is 1234 Foxwood Drive, Raleigh, and hit save. So right there, I've got a map, and that works because the property is marked, it shows the boundaries, it's in color, it shows the legend. The other option is I can come over here into Map Export, You don't change any of the options, leave it current view, and you're just going to hit print. And while that's not immediately intuitive, print isn't going to send it to the printer. It's going to produce a PDF map for you. And you're going to go in and name it and hit save. Okay, and now the map is up. So now what I can do is come in and right click, and I'm going to hit save as, and I'm going to save it somewhere where I can find this map. In this case, I'm going to put it on my desktop and hit save. And what you'll notice is there's a red dot here that marked the property location. If the property was not clear, or if for some reason there was a floodplain encroaching on the property, you will have to come in and mark the boundary of the property on the map very clearly. Couple ways to do that. I'm going to close these maps. One is to go and find the map that you just saved. So I'm going to minimize that. And I'm just going over to my computer, and I'm opening that PDF file that I saved. And here's that map. Something you can do in the map without having to print this in color and scan it and mark by hand where the platting is, which is an option. But an easier way to do it is you can click on Tools, or you can go under View in Tools. And what you can see is it gives you the option under Comment, hit Open. When I click under the comment section, it opens up a bunch of tools. And there's a couple things. This is just the basic version of Adobe. This is the free version. But in this case, I'm opening up the pencil right here, the right red pencil. And I can actually come in and draw in the property boundary. And then after I've drawn it in, I can come in and hit save. And it's going to ask me again. I'm going to hit save. And yes, I want to replace it because now it's got the marking on it. And just like that, I've now made it really clear where the property boundary is. Okay, if it does have a floodplain encroaching, we may ask for some platting maps, flood cert, some other things. We cannot accept a flood cert in lieu of this color map, though. This color map does have to be produced for HUD. Flood certs are great. They just don't take the place of what we need for HUD. So now I'm going to close that. I'm going to get back in to the environmental review section of that same file, and I've got my map now. So now I can answer the question, is the property located in a special flood area? In this case, I can say no. If I said yes, it's going to continue to ask me, does it participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, and will the home buyer be required to obtain and maintain flood insurance? If you say no, and he's not going to have flood insurance, he or she's not going to have flood insurance, and it is in a special hazard area, then we can't do the file. So I'm going to come back up and I'm going to say, hey, no, it's not in a floodplain, and that squishes that down. Coastal Barrier Resources Act. So if you're in a coastal county, you can click on this and figure out where the coastal barrier resources are, and you will have to upload a map if you are near the coast. It's easy to get the map. In my experience, the coastal barrier protection zones are very near the coast. Like, you have to be able to dip your toes in the sand typically to be in their area, but which generally excludes the home buyers we assist, but it is something that has to be documented. So we're going to say, no, it's not. And then the airport runway clear zones, what you're going to have to do, and this is a simple way to do it, is you can go in to the same Google map that we were in. I didn't want that to happen. Here, let's go back. apparently it wanted to show us Food Lion's beer section, which is, I'm sure, great, but that wasn't what I was attempting to do. And we're going to go in and mark the property. So here's our property that we said we were at. I'm going to zoom out and find the nearest airport. And you can search. So in this case, the airport is the Raleigh-Durham International Airport. And you're going to find the nearest point on the airport, so the sort of the nearest runway. And it's actually pretty cool that you can sort of get a visual sense of that. You're going to right-click and say measure distance. So we got one there, and we're going to come back over to where we clicked. And you can sort of move this around if you need to get it right where the point is, and we could do it where this arrow is here. And it's going to tell me, hey, it's 6.64 miles. So that's well outside of the area that we need. You can produce a map from here if desired to document and do the snipping tool, come in and say, hey, I'll go ahead and do it just so we can show what it's like. Airport map for 1234 Foxwood Drive, and I'm going to save that on the desktop. Where we require a map, sorry, I'm getting back to the original screen here, is if that distance is 2.84 miles or 0.47 miles of a civilian airport. So in a military airport, it's got a much wider circle. So say that you're in Fayetteville, that would really apply there. In Jacksonville, different areas where they may have a military airport. A civilian airport, it only has to be, you've got the 0.47 miles. In this case, we can say, is the property within that range? It is not. If it is within that range, we're actually looking very specifically to get a report from the airport, and they will tell you if the property is in their clear zone. Basically, and you can see here, if the property is within 2 to 4 miles, please go ahead and upload the map that you produced so that we can show that it wasn't within the 2.84, 0.47. If it's within it, you're going to have to upload the map as well as contact the airport to show whether or not the property is in the clear zone. Finally, we're going to say the report is prepared by, and the date. And we're going to say it was today, and hit save. Okay, so we answered the questions, we produced our maps. We're going to have to upload those maps, so it's important that we remember where we saved them. And then under the funding section, there's only 2 questions that have to be answered to start a reservation. It'll actually tell you here, at least 1 mortgage is required, sales price is required. So we have to enter in both those things. If I wanted to, down here at the actions, I could hit submit reservation, and it's actually going to come back and say, hey, here are the things you haven't done for this step in the process. So it's telling me I have to enter in at least 1 mortgage, I have to enter in a sales price, and I have to enter in a flood map. I can update mortgage, sales price, and even flood map later on, but it has to be in there to be able to submit the reservation. So I'm going to click under funding, and first thing I'm going to do is click on the blue pencil again, and I'm going to enter in the sales price. So in this case, and it's telling me up here the sales price limit is $224 for Wake County. It's going to change based on the county that you're in, so you need to pay attention to that. I'm going to say it's a $180,000 home. Sales contract date, we'll say, was Monday of this week. Appraised value. So I may not have the appraised value at this point, frankly. If I don't, I can add that later. If the appraisal's already been done, you can go ahead and enter it. I'm going to go ahead and say we don't know. So I'm just going to hit save. I knew what the sales price was. I knew what the contract date was. And I got that done. So now I'm going to go down to mortgages, and I'm going to click on the green plus to add a mortgage. And in this case, I'm going to add a first mortgage. If you're a Habitat, you'll be adding the Habitat loan here. If you're a CPLP member, you're going to be adding the bank's loan, whatever they're applied for. So we're going to say, I don't know, this is Fairway Mortgage. And their loan product type, you'll see the different types here. If you're a Habitat, doing a Habitat first, it would be Habitat for Humanity. Otherwise, the vast majority of them are going to be the NC Home Advantage first for CPLP. And we'll say, I don't know, we've got 180,000 and we asked for 30,000 for CPLP. So we'll say, I don't know, we got $140,000 first mortgage coming, interest rate of 3.5, term, and this is in months, not years. It's important that you get it in months, not years. We'll say it's 360 months. If you put, like in this case I said 30, the system will treat it as a 30-month term, not 30-year. Amortizing type. So almost always, unless this is a forgiving loan, deferred loan, it's going to be fully amortizing. Fixed payment means it's some other payment schedule that will not fully amortize the loan on a traditional schedule. There may be a balloon at the end. So otherwise, you're just going to select fully amortizing. And then you're going to come in and select mortgage type. We've got Habitat for Humanity. If it's a Habitat loan, in this case, we're going to say, hey, this is a conventional loan. And frankly, we may not know a whole lot more in detail. We may have the estimated principal and interest, and so we could put that in. I don't know, we'll say, hey, that is going to be $600 a month. We may not have property taxes or anything else. So right now we can hit save. And it may ask me for the loan officer right now. It is not. So we're okay. So we insert enough to go ahead and submit the reservation other than adding the flood map. Something I will point out is you can complete more information at this point, but as you complete additional information, both on the income section and the funding section, the portal is going to ask you for the support documents for whatever additional information you provide. So if you don't have the supporting documents for whatever you're adding, it's best not to add it until you're ready to provide those. Otherwise, you won't be able to submit the reservation without the underwriting document that may accompany the information you just provided. Something I will point out at the very bottom, you'll see NCHFA fees and grants. And if you are doing System Vision or some other program that's got a different fee or grant, and you're going to request that, you have to come down here and select it. And I'm going to hit, hey, we said it was a new home slab. We're going to hit save. And it adds it in. You'll see down here. So now I've requested that fee. If you do not do this step, the system will think that you are not asking for that fee. You may be telling us that the property was certified, but it's going to assume you were telling us that for informational purposes, not because you were requesting funding. Okay. So now I'm going to click on Documents. And under Flood Map is the first one. You'll see it's required. It also has optional for the airport clear zone, which we can upload, and the coastal barrier map. I'm going to click on Flood Map, and let's see, there's pictures of my kids. And in this case, we'll just upload this airport map that we did a couple times just to keep it simple. So we just uploaded that map, and you'll see, hey, it's there. I can click on the eyeball if I want to see what I uploaded. If for some reason I uploaded the wrong document, I can click on the three dots, the orange dots again, and upload another document over top of this if I uploaded the wrong document. And you can actually drag and drop a document into any of these slots. So if you've got it open in a folder on your computer, you can drag it over and it'll automatically upload. Just let go of it over the box. On the airport runway zone, we're going to click on that and upload that document. And then we don't have a coastal barrier map, and it's optional. So we uploaded those two documents. And what I can do is hit refresh. And you'll see, hey, we got all the documents that are required for the reservation. So now I can come down below under Actions and hit Submit Reservation. It's going to take me to this screen, and now you'll see everything is green, where we had those red notes before. Now there are no red notes. So we can hit Submit, and the system, one more time, is going to ask me, wait, are you sure this is what you want to submit? So it's their last chance to edit the reservation information. If you thought there was an error, you can hit OK. And now that has gone in, and you'll say, hey, your reservation has been submitted for review. And up here in the top, it says Submitted. So now I am actually going to go into our portal on our side with the agency accesses. And I'm going to quickly approve the reservation here. You don't need to know any of this other than this is what we have to do in the background. So I'll move it over here. And I'm adding the member fee and the system vision fee. All right. So what I did on my side is I went ahead and I just approved that reservation. Because we're actively logged in right now, it's still showing this file is just submitted. If, say, I would have just gotten an email that the reservation had been accepted. So what you'll see now, if I go out to the main screen, hey, your reservation has been accepted. Next step is to complete and submit the underwriting package for review. I can click on any of these messages in Inbox, and they will take me to the file that they're related to. Something I'll point out now is we have this messages section at the bottom below documents. So like I mentioned before, that inbox, if I went back out, it says, hey, there's no unread messages right now. You'll see that. So if I went back out a second time, I'm not going to see that there's a message there. What I'm going to have to do is find the file. And I can see here are the messages that are under this particular file. There's my accepted message. If I needed to ask a question or ask for some information to be changed that is locked in the system, you can hit this green plus and say something, I don't know, my caps lock is on. Do I need a separation agreement? You want the subject to be as detailed as possible, and then down here you're going to explain the situation, borrower, and I'm just going to leave it blank there. So there, you would type in a full email, and then you hit save, and that message is going to be sent to us internally to respond to. If you get a response, it's going to show back up in that inbox, and you can dialogue whichever staff member is currently responding to the file. It's important that the subject is understandable because we have a lot of different staff members checking that inbox queue, and by making it detailed, it lets us know which staff member should respond. Okay, so now we're going to go back into the funding screen, and you'll notice before I do that, that you got little lock symbols now over several of these fields that were related to reservation. So again, if I needed to change that, I'm going to have to send a message at this point. I'm going to jump right into the funding section. And this is where I can now go into the mortgage and say, I know more now. Now I know what the property tax amount should be, and this says monthly. You'll see at the top when you mouse over. So we'll say, I don't know, $80 a month. Homeowners insurance is $60. We'll say they have no PMI, so we're going to leave that blank. HOA dues, we'll see blank. more number than I need. Loan officer's email. And additional notes. So like if this was a deferred or forgiving loan, you can type in the terms of the deferment. In this case, there isn't anything. We'll just say it's a North Carolina home ad loan. You don't have to type anything if it's standard. If it's deferred or forgiving, you do have to provide some explanation in terms of what the terms are. Now you'll see, hey, appraised value is required. So up here in the blue pencil that we clicked on before, I'm also going to pretend that now we have the appraisal. We've got the closing costs, the prepaid items, at least what we've been told they are at this point. So we'll say appraisal is $185,000, closing cost is I don't know, $3,000, prepaids, which are prepaid insurance taxes, those kinds of things. We'll say is another $1,200, and we're going to say save. And what you'll notice here under the unit financing summary is it's going to start calculating things like loan to value, total cost to the borrower. It's going to show you all the loans that are available and funds needed at closing. So in this case, it's saying we need $14,200. We're going to add some other funding here. So if it is a repaid mortgage, or it's a deferred mortgage, anything with a loan document, it always goes under mortgages. Grants, cash assistance, borrower contributions go under other funding. So let's say there is another mortgage and it's going to be in third position, and say it's the city of city. It's some city program and it's another loan, its other loan type, loan product is city DPA program. And we'll say they're giving them $4,000. It's 0% interest, and the term is 360. And under amortization type, we'll say, hey, this is a deferred and forgiving loan. So we'll say deferred, mortgage type is other. There isn't a P&I amount. We're going to leave all of these things blank. Loan officer would be the contact of this program. And then additional notes, this is where we would say, hey, this forgives, we'll say at year 30, just to make it simple. At end of year 30, and then hit save. Oh, it does ask us for the P&I amount, and we'll put in 0 and hit save. The SHLP loan amount, we're going to come in and it is in second position. And now you're starting to see a funding picture emerge here. It says funds needed at closing. So another thing we can do is we can come in under borrow, under other funding, and add, like, say, the borrower contribution. We'll say, I don't know, $5,000. And we're going to say this is private funds, and it's their earnest deposit. And funds needed closing is $5,200. We'll come in under other funding, and we'll say, hey, the seller is going to pay some of the costs. So we're going to come in, and that's also private funds. This is also where you could add other sources. There could be cash gifts from somebody else, any other source of funding that is not going to be on a loan. And that's going to show up. And now you're going to see, oh, hey, here's the breakdown, the summary. It's saying $200 needed at closing, total funding, total cost. And so we know the borrower in this case is going to have to bring $200 to closing. But that's the basics for the unit financing screen. You're going to see here no issues. We're going to click on income now. And I'm going to pause for a second. Are there any questions for anybody up until this point? I'm going to check the chat. If you have any, feel free to chat them in. Okay, I am seeing so far that you guys seem to be tracking, or you're playing, you know, Facebook games. So hopefully you're tracking with me here. So now under household members, you'll see we've got our borrower and our co-borrower. Here in the top right, you've got a plus symbol, and at this point, you want to add all household members. Just please enter all household members. This is important because the income limits are going to be populated based on this. This is also what we report out to HUD. So we'll say we've got Child Simpson here, and date of birth is 1/1/2017. It's a dependent under the age of 18. You can select the kind of household member type, 18 years old and older, under 18, or a full-time dependent student. And let's say, I don't know, we'll say Marge Simpson is living with the family. So she'll be a dependent 18 years old or older. I'm going to hit save. So now we have 4 household members. You'll see down here under household income, it tells us what the income limit is for the number of household members we've provided. Okay? So now what we want to do is we want to add in all the sources of income that are going to apply to this household. So you're going to click on the green dollar symbol and select income type. So you've got options here for retirement income, SSI, you've got child support, foster care. In this case, we're going to say wages and earned income. What you're going to have happen probably the vast majority of the time, unless somebody is on like scheduled salary pay, is that their pay is going to vary, and they may have overtime, they may have bonus pay, they may have hours that change. So we're going to select year to date in those cases. And the best thing I can recommend is, say that you, we're in April right now. So let's say you have income, you have the W-2 from last year for the job that they worked, and you have the year to date through April of this year. I recommend pulling out a calculator and adding in the year-to-date income based on the most recent pay stub that you have and the previous year income, and put in the total here. So let's pretend, I don't know, last year they made $35,000, and year-to-date they have made 12. So we'll say $47,000 up until this point. And the beginning date, we're going to say, hey, the beginning date is January 1st, 2016. We'll say that they started the year last year with that income. And we'll say that, let's say the pay stub covers through April 15th, 2017. So it runs through the Saturday of last week. And this is where you can say something about the job. I don't know, we'll say this is Best Buy. It helps the underwriter match up the job with the income documentation, and then hit save. And what you'll see is, even though we said, hey, they're making quite a bit more money, because we put in the longer time period, it annualized the income. So this is what it would be annualized over a year based on the total of the previous year and the year-to-date income. We could also say, hey, Marge Simpson is getting SSI income, and it's a monthly award, and her monthly award is $400. We're going to hit save. And what you'll notice after we add that source of income is, A, it gets added to the annual household income, and B, it does not get added to the qualifying income that it's going to be used to calculate the ratios. So it won't impact whether they can afford the home, but it will impact whether they are under the income limit for HUD. And so you can add in the income sources that apply. We don't have to count income for children under 18. The system will automatically exclude it if you try to enter that in. But there's no need to enter that in. We're going to leave just those 2 income sources for simplicity today, but you would add in all of them that apply. And I'm going to pause for a second. A question came up. So somebody asked about manuals. We do have manuals that walk through this. It's actually a training PowerPoint that is loaded on the website. It walks through this in sort of painstaking detail with a lot of pictures. So that is available on the website under Forms and Resources. And then Hal asks, can you determine sales price at reservation phase when you have no appraisal? And can you enter in approximate amount and edit it after the appraisal is done? Yes, you can. That is an editable field. It is under the funding page. So if that changes later on, you can update the sales price based on appraisal. Okay, so now under the analysis screen, you'll see it asks for cash reserve after closing. There's nothing to click on this part of the page except for this blue pencil up near the top. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to ask me current monthly rent. So if they aren't renting currently and there isn't one, you leave this blank. If they are currently renting, you would say, hey, it is, I don't know, $450 a month. Cash reserve after closing, this does have to be at least $1. Lots more is great. We love for there to be 60 to 90 days of pay as a reserve after closing, or of expenses rather. But it has to be at least $1. We're going to come in and I don't know, we'll say they've got $2,000 in a cash reserve. Other monthly debts. So this is a total. This does not break down in detail, and this is where you need to do some analysis of the household. These are installment debts and reoccurring debts, not utilities, but things like credit card payments, minimum credit card payments, college loans, those kinds of things. And so you'll add in the total of the monthly debts here. So we'll say, hey, they've got $200, and we'll say that's a car payment. Monthly housing subsidy. So if they are receiving a housing choice voucher or a mortgage credit certificate, something that would impact they're essentially getting some cash assistance to help them buy the home, you would enter in the total of the monthly housing subsidy. Leave this blank if they are not getting anything. Okay, so now that we've provided that information, you'll see, okay, it's telling us what the amount entered was. It will tell me what the amount calculated was. So this is what the system said. Based on the 3.5 rate that you gave me in the term, we show that being $628.66. So the system on the mortgage will attempt to show you what a calculated rate is based on what you've entered in. I'm going to leave it at $600 for simplicity, but you can actually go back in and edit that if you get an updated calculation from a loan officer or from your own calculations. If you're a Habitat, you can update that amount. CPLP repayment in this case is 0. If you're working with SHLP, you need to keep in mind that it will show you the SHLP repayment amount, and the first repayment amount or the amount entered needs to be the part that the Habitat is amortizing, not the agency. The agency, a portion will be automatically entered in. Property taxes, in this case, we got 80, 60. We continue down. So it's going to tell me what the total mortgage payment is, the qualifying income based on what we entered in on the income section. And here it's calculating the ratios, and it's going to give me green, yellow, red based on whether or not it is clearly in program guidelines, it is on the edge of program guidelines, or is well over program guidelines. It's also going to show the total monthly debt, which is including the installment debt I entered in, and there it's going to calculate the back-end ratio based on what the total monthly debt is. And down below it shows me again, here's the current monthly rent and cash reserve after closing. So we don't have any other issues here. This section is important because the underwriter looks at this. This has a lot to do with underwriting approval. Now I'm going to click on education. And under education, this is where you're going to enter in the education hours, who provided it, who provided the housing counseling hours as well. So we don't always, I mean, it could be the same person that's the counselor and the educator. It may be that you're working with a separate agency that's providing the class, or they're doing online education. We're going to say, in this case, hey, they completed 6 hours of online education, so we'll say it's eHome Express, and they completed it Monday. And then counseling, let's say they're working with a counselor internal, and we'll say it's the happy counselor that's on your staff. So the total of these currently have to be at least 8 hours. We're going to hit save. And now we've completed the education section. We're going to continue to work our way down, and you'll see closing attorney is required. Under this section, the first thing that you're going to do is click on the pencil. It is important to try to search for the attorney. This is not the paralegal, but the attorney in this list. We try to not create duplicate entries for the same attorney. So what you're going to start to do is start to type in part of the name. We'll see here. Okay, so I started to type in Steve, and we can find one of these attorneys. Well, I don't know, we'll say Steve Medlin here, and it's going to populate automatically the attorney's information. If, for instance, there was not the right attorney anywhere in the list, you would click not in the list, and you do have to provide all of this information to set them up. Okay, so check if some of this information is in error. Say they moved offices, please send us a message and say, hey, the attorney is still in business, they're not at this address anymore, here's their current information. So now I'm going to hit save, and now I've selected the closing attorney. The closing contact, 99.9% of the time, is going to be the paralegal. So you're going to put in the paralegal's name and their phone number and their email, and the organization, which in this case is going to be the attorney's office. And hit save. So what's going to happen is when we send out the pre-closing instructions and the other instructions related to this file, we're going to send it to both the attorney and the paralegal that you provided to us. So it's important we get both of those. A lot of times the paralegal winds up being the one that responds to the email, so it's important that we have an accurate paralegal, but we do copy both. And you'll notice we are now in the documents section, and we've got a couple documents to upload. We've worked our way through the rest of the portal. Here into the document section, you're going to see there's several that are required and some that are optional. In this case, the CO is saying optional, and it's not technically optional because we do not require the CO. It's optional because it will allow you to submit the underwriting package without having the CO in hand. So in some of these cases, if something is made optional, it could be because it's required later. The CO is the primary example of that. Something else I will point out is 3 of these forms have a blue pre-filled template available next to it. So if you have started at the top of the portal and worked your way through completing each section, you have given us enough information to automatically fill out these forms. If you skip sections and you try to generate the forms will generate with blanks or with gobbledygook calculations in it that don't make any sense because the information wasn't provided above. So make sure you don't generate these templates until it's complete. One other point I will make is if key information like the address changes or the sales price changes or the borrower changes, you're going to need to regenerate these forms and have them signed the second time if one of those key pieces of information have changed. So I'm going to click on the pre-filled template is available. I won't do it on all of these, but I'm going to give you a chance to see how this works. So what the system did is it created a PDF that can be printed, signed, and scanned. And you'll see it has pulled in the name, co-borrower's name, the address, the organization. It's got in here the loan amount they're asking for from the agency. It's got in here the term, the interest. It's got in here the sales price and the county with the sales price limit. So it's got in all the information that we have been provided thus far. So this is going to be signed by the co-borrower and the borrower, if there is a co-borrower, and then scanned and uploaded. The same information, or the same process rather, is going to be required for the borrower affidavit. The borrower affidavit is really based on the information that you've provided. So things like homebuyer education and the number of children that you've entered in and whether or not you said that child support was coming in as income, their marital status, and finally, just some certifications that say, hey, we understand our responsibilities if flood insurance is required, and essentially we're stating that by moving forward with this, we agree that the property met the condition that we wanted it into to move forward and purchase it. And it's essentially a protection to both your organization and the agency to say the borrower was satisfied. The last form that can be generated is this addendum to sales contract. And this is one particularly if the sales price or the appraised value changed has to be regenerated because it is pulling in both of those numbers. In this case, the borrower is already entered in. We do not collect the seller information currently. There may be a day when we collect that in the portal, but it's not collected, so that's going to have to be written in. The buyer signs, as well as the co-buyer, and then the seller signs saying they accept. And essentially what this document is saying is that the buyer and the seller recognize, A, that we're not providing them any relocation benefits, that this is a voluntary transaction, and that this is what the value of the property is. When you use federal funds to assist in the purchase of a property, and this really goes back to eminent domain abuse, one of the things that it is required is that the seller has to be aware of the fair market value of the property. There is no guarantee that the sales price can be renegotiated based on fair market value. We do not require that. All that is required is that they are informed and that they are moving forward in the transaction voluntarily. They can choose to break contract if they disagree, and that is entirely at their discretion. If the seller is a builder, the builder needs to sign this as well per an audit that we had with HUD. So that's what this document is essentially saying, is it's a voluntary transaction. This is what the property is worth. There is no protection that's being offered in terms of relocation, and that the seller will not come back later on and say, hey, you guys used government money to hide the value of my property, and I felt like I got a poor deal. So those are the three forms, and the only three forms that are generated in the portal. Everything else is going to be documentation related to the purchase of the property. So we've got the appraisal, and we've got the sales contract and the education certificate. The pay stubs are based on the information that you uploaded in the system. So for every set of income that you said there was in the household, it's going to ask for the related information. If this was an existing property, this is going to ask for the inspections that are needed. If it was a property that was built before 1978, it's going to ask for the lead-based paint documentation and the disclosure and the risk assessment. So based on the information you have given us, the portal is going to attempt to require all the documentation that we know is required. What you can do is up here under documents, you can always add a document. And this may be where there is some key document that we have no idea about based on the information that you've provided. You can add a letter of explanation, for instance. You can add divorce decree or separation papers. a death certificate. There are things that you can add to clarify the situation with the household if you know it's something that the system is not asking you for, but the underwriter will ask you for. Okay? So now all we're going to do is we're going to upload, and in this case, I'm just going to upload the same basic document instead of going out and uploading a bunch of different documents. I'm going to upload the airport map a couple times. Don't do this in real life because you will drive the underwriter crazy. So we're going to upload this document to each of the slots. And as I mentioned before, if you upload the wrong document, you can always drag and drop or re-upload the correct document right over top of it, and it'll replace it. We'll say in this case we've got the CO already. You may not have it, and it may be something that's asked for as a closing contingency. We do have to have the CO on new properties, though, before the home closes. For existing properties, we have to have the home inspection and the minimum property standard inspection. Okay, so now we have uploaded the documents to each of the slots. And if I refresh this, it's going to say, hey, there's no issues. So again, I'm going to go to the bottom, and I get the option to submit the underwriting package. If I had missed anything, this would give me the messages in red and say, hey, you forgot this. I can hit submit, and again, it's going to come back and tell me, hey, are you sure you're ready to submit this? I'm going to say, yes, I am. So now the underwriting package has gone into the agency for review. And you can't see this, but I'm pulling it up on the other screen. And I'm going to quickly approve this file. So the underwriter on our side is going to go through the file, and they have to go document by document and review each one of them. One thing I will show you that's pretty cool. So on my side, I'm pretending I'm an underwriter and I'm approving these documents. If I click on the Documents tab now, on the file that's in the portal, you can actually see next to each document, it will tell you the date that it was reviewed and approved. And you'll see right now I've gotten through the borrower affidavit, but I have not done the property appraisal. And so you can actually live see the approval of each document as the underwriter has reviewed them. So I'm continuing to work my way down. I'm getting close to the bottom now. Sorry, here I'm going through a couple steps internal where that are required for the process. This is a SHLP file, and this is the point where I would send out the good faith estimate. So the system is helping me do that. I'm confirming that I sent the good faith estimate to the email address that was provided. So something I could do now as an underwriter is say there was a document that I noticed, and in this case, we'll pretend it's a divorce decree or separation paper. So the underwriter is going to create a document slot on their side, and what they can do is they are going to return the underwriting package and send you a message. And they're going to send a nice, clear message. In this case, I'm going to send something very short. And so what would have happened is if you were subscribed to this file, is you would have just gotten a message that said underwriting package returned. And in this case, I said, what is up with the divorce? So there's a message here, but what you'll notice that's more important is I have added a document down here at the bottom for the divorce decree. It says it's required. So in this case, for me to proceed, I'm going to have to upload the divorce decree or the separation documents. I have to upload some document there. It also could be something like updated pay stubs, the VOE, something like that. So I'm going to upload that document. And now again, I'm going to go to submit underwriting package, hit submit, and it's going to ask me one more time again, are you sure you want to submit? I'm going to say okay. And so what has just happened is that file went back to the underwriter, and they can review the document that you added and say that that was correct, that was the last thing that they needed. So I'm going to pretend that I am approving the file today. And now if I go back out to the main page, I can see that this file has been approved. I would have also received a message saying there was action that occurred with the file. So it's an underwriting conditional approval. I can click on it and see which file that they're talking about. And you'll notice up here in the top right, it says this file is approved. So this is a fully approved file. So the only action I have left now in this file is down here under Submit Closing Date. Hopefully everybody can see that. So I'm going to click on Submit Closing Date, and something's going to populate. You'll see here the unit financing summary comes back up. And this is particularly important because the information that is here is what we are going to review when it comes to reviewing the final closing disclosures. So the information that's provided here, we're assuming is accurate, that the sales price is accurate, that the closing costs, the prepaid items, except for small amounts with the prepaids and the closing costs, we hold as particularly the loans. We look very carefully at the loans, the lien positions, the sales price, the appraised value. If you're looking at this and you're going, oh, hey, wait, the sales price changed, you have the ability here to update underwriting, and it will open up the underwriting section again for you. It's going to send it back through underwriting. It will hold all of the approvals that you have already gotten for the documents, but it will allow you to update critical information like the amounts, sales price, for instance, or the loan amount that you're requesting from the agency. Say that changed. This is what you would have to do to edit that. And again, if you change something related to our funding, the sales price, a borrower that is not going to be part of the household, some of those you may have to message us because it may be locked in the system, but it's also important to regenerate those documents to sign. Now what I can do is look at the confirmed closing date. Well, because the date I provided was clearly okay, it's going to show, hey, here's the closing date. I can go in and update and say I was going to try to rush and close in April. And I try to type in the 27th. Well, you'll see here the 27th isn't available, and that's because I'm not allowing the 6 business days that are required. If the agency is closed, if the 6 business days aren't there, you will see that it is grayed out. This lighter color tells me that's not available. So based on the information I have on this calendar, the 28th is the earliest date I can select for a closing. So let's say I've talked to the first mortgage lender or the closing attorney, the 28th is available. I can go here in the system, select the 28th, and hit submit. And once again, it's going to ask, hey, are you sure the date's correct, that all the other information's correct? It's important that, like I had said before, that the loan amounts and the other things are correct, because if you schedule the closing and one of those key pieces of information has changed, we have to pull it back out of the closing queue. And so it starts that 6 days over again. If something's minor, like a fee or a prepaid changes, just shoot us a message. If the closing date gets moved back, not forward typically, unless it was scheduled for well beyond the 6 days, you can send a message in the system that the closing date has been moved later. So I'm going to hit OK, and you'll see it tells me, hey, your closing date has been scheduled for 4/28. The file is approved. So at this point, there's nothing else for me to do with that file other than wait for the closing to occur. There's nothing else that's going to be provided to the agency unless for some reason it gets kicked out of the closing queue because there was a significant error in the funding. Something else I will show you is afterwards, and we'll pull up this sort of gobbledygook file here. If you have a loan that's already closed, and you'll see here's loan status. If I click on this one that's already closed, a new piece of information pops up at the bottom that says post-closing documents. I can click on that, and it will show you every document that's required post-closing. So in a lot of cases, the attorney's providing these, but it might be something like System Vision if it's a System Vision unit, whether or not it's been received by the agency and the date it was approved. So if you're waiting for funding to be dispersed by the agency for the member fee or one of the other fees, you can actually log in after closing and see exactly what documentation has been submitted and what has been reviewed and approved. So that, my friends, is the Loan Pool Portal in a nutshell. At this point, I am going to turn back to questions or to the chat and see what else may be out there. Does anybody else have other questions that I can answer while we are together today? And feel free, I'm going to look and see if anybody has raised their hand and wants to ask via phone too. All right. Scrolling down. It appears that we have answered all the questions. I will attempt to record this webinar and upload it to the resource page on both the CPLP website and the SHLP website. The web page is devoted to both of those under nchfa.com. There's also the screenshot version of the trainings that are out there have a walkthrough of the portal itself with screenshots. And feel free to go out, download that at any point at your leisure, and you can review that. You can share it with other staff in your agency or your organization. At this point, I'm going to wrap up and say thank you, everyone, for participating today. Certainly feel free to give us a call or shoot us an email if you have questions as you are starting your first file or your first file in a while in the portal. We want to do our best to help you have a successful experience with it, so certainly feel free to contact us. We appreciate your partnership, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.